Okay, in this example here, we just want to have a look at, we're given two planes, but we're missing the coordinate for point E inside in plan. Okay, so we don't know, okay, E in plan, okay, we do not know its coordinate. Okay, we are told, however, that the dihedral angle between the two planes, ABD and ADE, we're told that that dihedral angle is 165 degrees. Okay, so we're going to work kind of backwards the way we normally work with our dihedral. When we're looking for, in this case, we're given our dihedral, we need to work back and find the location of point E inside the plan. So I know it's somewhere along this line, I don't know exactly where yet. Okay, so the first thing, establish the line of intersection. So obviously that's my line AD. That's my line AD. Okay, it's not a true length in either of those views. So the first thing I want to do is get it as a true length. So I'm going to get the two planes where my line of intersection is going to be a true length. Now, if we're missing the point in plan, okay, this is important. So we're missing the point in plan here. So what we're going to do is take an auxiliary plan, okay, coming off our elevation. Okay, so we're missing the point in plan, so we're going to go with an auxiliary plan. So looking 90 degrees to my line of intersection in my elevation. Okay, that's going to be my x1, y1, and the other points I'm going to project now are going to be 90 degrees to that. Okay, so I'm just going to set up and make sure that I'm going 90 degrees to it. Set up using my protractor. It might be a little bit overkill, but just to make sure that I'm going exactly 90 degrees to it. Project point A, project point D, so that's the line of intersection, and of course we need a point either side of it, E and B. Okay, so now I'm going to get the view over here now of my planes again. Okay, so that's my x1, y1. It's going to extend it past the projection line there for point A. Okay, so that's my x1, y1. And of course this is my original xy. Okay, so we're going here, so we're going back two views. 1, 2. So it's my xy down to my plan. That's what I'm measuring up here. Okay, so make sure you're accurate when you're measuring off these. So from the xy down to point D. Okay, and from the D line being projected up, mark that into our new view. That's point D. Okay, from the xy down to point B. That's it there, and again from our x1, y1, mark it up. That's my point B. Okay, and I do the very same for the furthest one, which is A. So all these points, I was told the distance they are out from the vertical plane, so they're out a certain distance, and I see that in plan. Of course, I wasn't given the one for E, so that's why I'm going and doing this. So mark on my point A there. Okay, so there's my plane in that view, ADB. Now have a true length of my line of intersection, which is AD. Okay, so now I cannot obviously put E in. I had the projection line for it, but I don't have a distance for it, so I can't mark it in. So I'm going to go ahead now and use the next step. What we do then is we look along the line of intersection, look along its true length, okay, because that is the true length. Okay, because we look 90 degrees to it here. Make some y1 or 90 degrees to it. So what I need to do now is look along the true length. Okay, let's make some y1. I'm going to project it now looking along that true length. One x2, y2 I should say, perpendicular to it. So x2, y2. Okay. And now I'm going to get a new view of my planes down here. My line of intersection, my red one, will just become a point. Okay, so again, back two views. I'm working here. I'm going back two. So I'll go back and back. So 1, 2. So my line of intersection is the line AD. Obviously, A and D are the same distance from my x1, y1, which means they're going to end up as a point down here. So that's my AD. And then my line B, or my point B I should say, distance my xy, x1, y1, back to my elevation, back to my point B. Projected from my x2, y2 up along that projection line. That gives me point B. So I can redraw my plane. That's my plane ABD, okay, as an edge. Now, we're going to now use our dihedral angle of 165. Okay, we're going to work that into it there now. So, I put my protractor on the line. So the bullseye right on the line with the section, which is now a point, which is AD. And I measure my 165 degrees. And it's actually bringing me, I think, back along there. Hold on now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so it's bringing me right back along. Okay, it's bringing me right back along the projection line from the line of the section. So that's actually turns out to be 165 degrees there. Okay, so I'm just going to label that in as my 165 degrees. Okay, so that's 165 degrees. Okay, now, of course, could have gone the other way, so I'll just do that just to show you. We could have gone 165 this way, and we're going to get a different answer if we do that. So 160, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there is two possible outcomes. Okay, and I'd imagine to the first one we're going with, but we'll just put in this one in there. So that's another option for my 165 degrees at my point AD, and that will give us two possible locations for our point E in plan, and we'll know then which one is actually right. Okay, so what we're going to do now again is work backwards. So how do we get on these points here? Well, we're going back 2 views, 1, 2. Okay, so I take my distances from my x1, y1 back to my elevation, and I mark them onto this view. So I'm going to do the same now for my point E. My other ones are done. Okay, so get the distance from my x1, y1 up as far as point E. Again, make sure you're as accurate as you can be. So right there to point E. From your x1, y1, get the distance right on there to point E and mark that into your new view. So I'm going to take that distance and I'm going to mark from my x2, y2 up. And what that's going to do, it's going to allow me to put in a height line, and it'll cut those other two lines. So from my x2, y2 up, put in the height line. So it could be here, we're saying, or option 1, we're going with that one there. Because that's option 1 for point E. Okay, so I'll call it E1, and I'll call this, the second one I put in, we'll call it E2. Okay, so there's two possible outcomes here or here. Okay, so what we're going to now is going to project them back to the previous views. But it's important that we know how we got this distance here in order to mark off my two possible point E's. Okay, and I'm going to put them in the yellow line because that's my plane, it's yellow. Okay, that's option 1, and then we're going to say this is option 2, we'll say, right? So there are two possible options for my point E. So now I'm going to bring these back to my previous view, and of course we had E projected. So when I bring them back, wherever they cut the projection line for E, then it only makes sense that that's it in our new view. Okay, so I'll just, that goes up along, it's going to cut it there. Next one goes up along there, we'll say. Okay, so again we'll say that's E2, this is E1, okay, which of course would mean that they all end up in one straight line. Okay, A, D, E. Okay, if we're going with option 1, it just means that that's in one straight line along there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do now is project into my plan. Okay, so I'll just lightly put that in there for a moment. And lightly put that in there for a moment. One option for my triangle, and my other option is actually along that line there. Okay, that might be a bit hard to visualize, but that's just the way it's lining up. So we can either take this distance, and of course we can put it onto this drawing, because that's how we got those distances there. okay, was from my XY down to my plan. So I mark from there up to this view, do you remember? So I'm going to take my second option, set that distance, put that down into my plan. Okay, remember it's along the E projection line. And I do the same for this guy here. Just looking at it, the first option, which is the one I originally taught down here, that is the one that looks right. So from E down to my plan. Okay, so that is actually the option for my point E. Okay, this one here is too low, just looking at the question that it came from. Would have been my other option, I'm saying, but it is too low. Okay, so remember we're missing our point E in plan, so we start off with an auxiliary plan and then we work our way from there. We mark on a dihedral, and then whereabouts along that projection line was it? Well, this distance was just marked up. That gave me my point E. Okay, so and then in my view down here, this distance here was taken and that gave me my point E there.